Not every Christmas gift brings joy. Some come wrapped in whispers, sealed in skin.
They say Christmas is a time of giving, of warmth, of family. But for the Crowder family, this Christmas brought something else, a gift. Not meant to be opened, a curse not meant to be unwrapped. Some gifts aren't wrapped in paper or love. Some are wrapped in skin and scream when you open them. Our story begins on December 23rd, just 2 days before Christmas. The Crowder family, Dean, his wife, Meredith, and their 2 children, Ethan and little Harper, were spending the holidays in a remote mountain cabin. It was meant to be a quiet getaway, a chance to escape the noise of the city and reconnect. But then the snowstorm hit. It came on fast and hard, a blizzard that buried the world in a silent, suffocating blanket of white. The phone lines went dead. They were cut off, isolated. No neighbors for miles, just the crackling firewood, the flickering lights of the cabin, and the false comfort of each other's presence against the storm. That afternoon, while trying to clear a path from the door, Dean found a package on the porch. It was just there. There were no footprints in the deep snow leading to or from the cabin. No tire tracks from a delivery vehicle. Nothing. It was just a black box, neatly tied with a crimson ribbon, sitting perfectly pristine on the snow-dusted wood, as if the storm itself had birthed it right there. Inside, they gathered around the fireplace, the warmth doing little to chase away the unsettling chill the mysterious package brought with it. A mix of uncertainty and curiosity filled the air. "Maybe it's from Grandma," little Harper suggested, her voice full of childhood hope, but that was impossible. No one had told Grandma where they'd debuted this year. The trip was a last-minute decision. Despite the strangeness of it all, the holiday spirit, or maybe just plain curiosity, won out. Dean, the father, carefully peeled away the black wrapping paper. Inside was an antique music box. It was beautifully, yet unsettlingly, carved from a dark, unfamiliar wood. The carvings depicted scenes of angels and wolves, but they weren't peaceful. They were locked in some kind of strange, eternal battle. Dean paused, then turned the key. Music played. If you're still breathing, like and subscribe to Bloody Chapter Feed the Box, and let the screams continue. It was supposed to be Silent Night, a comforting carol, but the tune was distorted, warped and warbling as if played on a broken record. And then, something else, underneath the corrupted music. A whisper. It was faint, almost inaudible, like the rustle of dry leaves or a voice on the edge of sleep. But it was there. "Give yourself," it seemed to say. The family exchanged uneasy glances, trying to dismiss it as a trick of the wind or their own frayed nerves. They placed the box on the mantel and tried to forget about it. A silent, dark guest at their holiday gathering. That night, the curse began to take root. Dean woke up with a nosebleed. It gushed, staining his pillow bright red. When he finally fell back into a fitful sleep, Meredith was woken by a dry, scratching sound. It was Dean, clawing at his own chest, his nails digging into his skin as if trying to rip something out. By morning, the front of his shirt was soaked through with blood. He looked pale and shaken. He told Meredith he'd dreamt of the music box. In the dream, he was opening it again and again, but instead of unwrapping paper, he was peeling back layers of his own flesh from his chest, offering it to the box. Terrified, Meredith decided the box had to go. She snatched it from the mantel and tried to throw it into the roaring fireplace. But it wouldn't burn. The flames that licked at its wooden shell turned an unnatural, ghastly blue. Then, with a loud hiss, the fire spat back at her, scorching her arm. When she looked down, she saw the burn wasn't random. It was a perfect spiral, branded into her skin. The next day was Christmas Eve, and the horror escalated. Harper woke the entire cabin with a piercing scream. It wasn't just a nightmare's cry. It was a scream filled with real, sharp pain. Meredith and Dean burst into the kids' room to find a scene from a slaughterhouse. Their son, Ethan, stood over his little sister's bed. His eyes were wide and glassy, completely devoid of emotion. In his hand, he held a carving knife from the kitchen, its blade dripping with blood. "The book says we have to give her fingers," he whispered, his voice sounding distant and hollow, as if the words weren't even his own. Before they could react, he brought the knife down again. Harper had already lost 2 fingers. In a surge of maternal rage, Meredith tackled Ethan, knocking the knife from his hand. She slammed his head against the wooden floorboards, again and again, until the sickening crack of his skull echoed through the cabin like a dropped Christmas ornament. But the nightmare wasn't over. The blood from Harper's hand and Ethan's head didn't just pool on the floor. It began to move. It crawled in thin, darkery bullets, inching its way across the floorboards directly toward the music box on the mantel. It soaked into the dark wood, feeding it, and the family watched, paralyzed, as the wood seemed to darken and gleam. That night, amidst the grief and terror, Dean disappeared. Meredith searched the cabin frantically, her calls lost to the howling wind outside. They found him in the morning. He was outside, nailed to the cabin wall. His arms were outstretched like a grotesque, mocking crucifix. His eyes were gone, leaving empty, dark sockets. In his smiling face, his chest was completely peeled open, his ribs cracked apart and exposed to the freezing air. And nailed to the wall just above his head was a single, neatly folded note. It read, "Thank you for your gift." As Meredith stared in utter shock, a faint, distorted melody drifted from the cabin. The music box was playing again, all on its own. By Christmas morning, only Meredith and a feverish, wounded Harper remained. Harper's bandaged hand was beginning to rot, a foul smell emanating from the wound. The music box had changed. It seemed larger now, pulsing faintly on the mantel as if it were breathing. Meredith knew they had to run. They couldn't stay in this cursed place a moment longer. She scooped up her daughter, bundled her against the cold, and threw open the front door, expecting to face the snow and the forest. But the forest was gone. Instead of trees and white snow, there was a wall of twitching flesh and gnashing teeth. The cabin was no longer in the real world. It was inside the gift now. The moment that horrifying realization dawned on her, the whispers from the box grew into a song. It was a chorus of screams, thousands of voices, overlapping in a symphony of agony. It was the sound of every soul who had ever been gifted the box, now trapped within it forever. Meredith held her daughter close. The fire in the hearth was gone. The cabin walls began to ooze, a thick, red substance, and the music box. It began to open on its own. It split apart like a monstrous mouth, revealing not gears and mechanisms, but a churning, bottomless void of wet, writhing limbs inside. It wanted one last offering. Meredith looked down at her daughter, at her mangled hand, her feverish eyes. She whispered, "I'm sorry," to Harper, before shoving her into the box. Silence returned. And then a soft, chilling laughter filled the empty cabin. Weeks later, a search party found the cabin buried in ice and snow. There were no bodies, no signs of a struggle, no blood just. An eerie stillness. There was just a single music box, sitting alone on the hearth, polished, pristine, and waiting for the next curious hands to open it. The story is over, but the box is still open. Like, subscribe, and join Bloody Chapter before it chooses its next gift. Thanks for watching. And remember, some gifts don't want to be returned.